10 worst albums that 2018 has to offer. I am fake smiling because I am dreading having to talk about these albums. The idea of doing this video to me was just pointless, because why would I highlight 10 albums that I absolutely hated in the year? But honestly, in comparison to other years, I just somehow stumbled across way more albums that I absolutely hated and detest than I have in previous years. Since starting this channel, I guess it's sort of been my role to listen to as much music as I possibly can, take it all in, digest it, have an understanding for all kinds of music, which includes music as terrible as all these albums are. I thought if I've had to suffer all year listening to this dog shit, then I may as well just highlight it all in one video and tell you all why it's so bad and why you should just keep away from it and why music can go horribly wrong. I'm very confident these albums will be forgotten over time, but to document them all in one video just hopefully will cement the fact that they will be forgotten. Starting off with dishonorable mentions, I guess you will. Justin Timberlake's Man of the Woods. This was just how bad an experiment can go. Like, I appreciate he tried some new ideas, but fuck man, this was just terrible. It was so painful to listen to. The mixing, Pharrell's, everything. Funny thing about this album though is that it's Justin Timberlake, a very popular pop artist, and even commercially this completely flopped, aside from that one single with Chris Stapleton, which was actually the only song I was able to tolerate on this album. But tracks like Filthy were unbearable. Next dishonorable mention, the Desiigner EP that came out this year. I mean, this guy's lost complete relevance at this point. There is just no hype for this guy anymore. And once again, he just dropped like really short, barely finished tracks over an EP with terrible hooks and ridiculous ad-libbing. It was just no Desiigner. This is not good. Also need to mention Ronny J. I just mentioned how terrible the mixing on the Justin Timberlake album was, but honestly Ronny J may win for the worst mixing on an album this entire year round. Holy fuck. Finally, I'm not going to say too much about this one because, well, everyone said everything that needed to be said about it anyway. The Greta Van Fleet's album that came out this year, and of course they have Grammy attention because they're just rehashing the same music we've heard time and time again and done way better from the 1960s. Everything this band represents is just what's wrong with modern music. People are so lazy to go out their way to find new, refreshing, forward-thinking music. They have to listen to this shit. Like, what? Why, Greta Van Fleet? Why did you have to copy? Why did you have to just make new music? Alright, before I get too annoyed, I need to get to the list, which actually will make me even more annoyed talking about these albums than the albums I've just been talking about. Number 10. I have a pretty close friend of mine that loves this band, so I do apologise to her. She's probably not watching, but I do apologise for this one. Yes, that's right. Number 10 is Origins by Imagine Dragons. A surprise to probably no one who is watching this channel after I completely annihilated them in my review, and so did many other critics do it too. I find it unbelievably hard to believe that they sit down and make all the decisions that they make when making their music. They must be told what to do by some higher being or something to make the most commercially dumbed down music they possibly can. They just must be told to make this music. Every song they've ever made essentially makes its way into a film trailer, a fucking advert, a trailer on YouTube or something. Like, executives must be sat down and deciding every decision just so that they can make money off of this music. They don't even sound like a real band. The music that they make on this album is atrocious. There is just nothing redeemable about it. They even did one song that was like a rip-off of Chainsmokers. How out of touch can you be to rip off the Chainsmokers? That Digital song, which by the way, I won't be doing a worst songs of the year list. I just can't really be bothered to do that as well as an albums list. But if I were to do on Digital, top three worst songs I've heard this year. It is a mess. Tracks like Boomerang, the lyrics on this album are probably the worst part because this guy just pens the most dumbed down, basic lyrics he could possibly think of. I just find it hard to believe this is like actual music that someone decided to make and put onto an album. It is ridiculous, man. And as well, they are probably the biggest band around. Like, there aren't really many bands that are at this level in today's age. Yeah, sure, bands from like the 90s and 80s are still kicking around and still sell out arenas and stuff. But I mean, like, modern bands, it doesn't really get much bigger than Imagine Dragons, and they're making some of the worst music of the year. I can't believe it. All right, we'll move on. We will move on to number 9. The Queen. This is your queen. How is this our queen? Why the fuck hasn't the monarchy collapsed yet if this is the queen? Everything about Nicki Minaj to me absolutely reeks. Her attitude, the way she talks in interviews, she uses this like sass attitude, but ends up just sounding like a dickhead. It really annoys me that the internet, specifically her fans, have turned her like sass into this cool thing when in reality, she just uses it to act like a dickhead towards people that don't really deserve it. Nicki Minaj really had everything to prove with this album. She really needed to show people that she was this great rapper, that she was selling herself to be. She was really mad at the idea that another female rapper was gaining traction, obviously Cardi B. Cardi B was able to do something Nicki Minaj wasn't able to do and have a #1 hit, which I feel as though threatened Nicki Minaj. And if that was a threat to her, then that really should have pushed her to be bigger and better. But she ended up dropping one of the worst albums of the year because this album right here is awful. There was one good track on here, Barbie Dreams. I don't really think it's anything I'll ever return to for the rest of my life, but at least I can say it kind of had a bit of a humor to it. Although really the entirety of the song was just her attempting to take down everyone in her sight, which didn't work out because she just doesn't really display enough talent to prove to people that, yeah, actually, she is at the top of the game. All she really proved on this album was that she can flow fast. She has a fast flow, and the thing is, in 2018, we're starting to cotton on to the fact that just because you got a fast flow doesn't make you a good rapper. Anyone can really just string a sentence of words together just by using their breath control, but if there's nothing being said, it doesn't really mean anything. She bitched and moaned about the fact that her album didn't go to #1, but the fact of the matter is that none of the singles showed any of that talent that she's been bragging about this whole time. It just showed that she's just this rapper who isn't particularly very good and hasn't been very good for the entirety of this decade. All she really needed to do was just make a good album. If you're a good rapper, that's easy. And she couldn't even do that. She was just rhyming awful rhyme schemes and awful lyrics together, awful hooks from freaking Sway Lee on that one song. I don't hate Sway Lee, but that was a terrible song. And she's essentially alienated herself at this point. She hates the fact that other females are being successful. Why can't we have more female rappers in the game? Why can't you do better to promote these female rappers? And the irony of it all is that when I dropped my review, I had Nicki Minaj fans coming at me, telling me that I was a sexist pig who hated any rapper that wasn't a male. But the truth is that it's Nicki Minaj that hates the females. She hates them. It's not me that hates women, it's her. She's the woman hater, what the hell? This was terrible. It was so long as well. Why are rap albums like over an hour long these days? Can we just cut the fat for once, please? Okay, now we're on to number 8. Number 8. Princess Nokia. I mean, she displayed a bit of talent on her 1992 Deluxe mixtape that came out in 2017. If anyone remembers my review that I put out, I wasn't a fan of that. However, she showed that she had a good flow and good rhymes and a pretty decent sense of humor that going forward, I thought maybe she could put out a better project. And somehow she made an album that was even worse. Well, I guess you could call this more of an EP, honestly. But this was just some of the whiniest emo rap I think I've heard all year. And some people I've talked to have said, well, actually, you know what, there's worse out there. And there is, because I'm going to talk about that later on in this list, but I mean, it's not that much worse than this. This is of the same level as all the shit that's out there in this genre. I don't really see how this is any different. The singing all over this, Princess Nokia needs to focus more on rapping because her singing is dreadful. You have to slap on auto-tune on her voice, and even the auto-tune couldn't make her sound better than she actually sounded. That's a bad sign. And yeah, lyrically, I mean, just such basic rhymes, like the most basic lyrics you could possibly find. It was like that Trippie Redd album, Life's a Trip. You know, these two are very similar albums in that sense, in the sense that they just had awful lyrics that were so basic, and there's just nothing to take away from it. So yeah, I'm hoping to see her go more in the New York style rapping in the future, because that was much better than what we got here. Number seven, we have... yes, Skins by XXXTENTACION. You know, it's kind of funny that this is only at number 7 because this album isn't even a finished album, so it kind of proves that everything above this must be even more terrible to be worse than an unfinished album. Yeah, this shouldn't exist. This really shouldn't exist. The premise alone of this album really makes it make the list, because this is ridiculous. This is just a cash grab. They're digging into this man's grave to take more money from him. Like, it's terrible. I cannot stand this idea of posthumous albums just being there for the sake of making money. Like, it's terrible. It's just wrong. There's nothing good about this. It's so clear that the singing on this album was clearly just mere ideas that X probably came up with in the studio, but they were never fully realized into a song because there's just not enough lyrical detail on these tracks for it to be an album. Because they found a way that they could just make money from this, because people will eat into it anyway because of the man whose name it is, they just put it out. It's shocking. These aren't songs. They're just not songs. And the Kanye feature track, what the fuck was that guitar riff? I do not know. Why Kanye's there as well? It's just a bunch of rich people getting together and making more money than they possibly can. It's so bad. I can't really talk about this any longer. I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to why this is here. We'll move on. 30 Seconds to Mars with this album. Holy fuck. I do not know why rock bands from the 2000s have come forward to blend electronic pop music with their sound. I mean, I'm not trying to be like an old head and say rock music is the real music and electronic music is not real music. But it's clear that these bands are not capable of shifting their sound. What is this? There's another band later on the list that I'm going to bring up who did a very similar thing, but Jesus Christ, there's just no personality to this whatsoever. It's void of any charisma, any human touch. It is just a friggin' epic attempt on Love Is Madness with Halsey. Why is Halsey like anywhere? Like, why do I keep seeing her on songs and making it into the charts? She's just gonna be one of the soulless singers we have in this modern era. There's also an A$AP Rocky feature. Why is he here? What is this? What is that line where he's like, it takes 30 seconds to get to your heart, or whatever it is? Yeah, this was awful. Just a terrible blend of genres coming together to make just tepid music, like bland as hell. The guy has to slather auto-tune again on his vocals. You can't just throw it in for no friggin' reason. Like, you've got to utilize it in a way that heightens the music, and when you don't, it sounds horrific. Next, we've got number 5. (6ix9ine). I'm not picking an album. Like, both of the albums can go here, honestly. Like, probably if I had to choose, I would say Day 69 was worse, but both are just atrocious. And the thing is that, look, if you want some high progressive hip hop, that's fine. Like, that's fine. I can't really argue if you like that really fired up vocalist who's just shouting in your face over really super hype beats. We get it from Denzel Curry, Zilla Kami. There's a lot out there that really can do this quite well, even a bit of Scarlord, I guess. But this guy, nah. This sounds atrocious. He is just yelling aggressive, vulgar, violent lyrics over these atrocious beats. It's just unbearable. To the surprise of no one, it's the same guy who has like so many allegations against him. He's been, you know, potentially going into prison. Of course he is. Have you read the fucking lyrics to this? He's constantly talking about beating people up and shooting someone in the face. Like, it's just so awful to listen to. And this guy's had multiple hits this year as well. Multiple hits. Why? Who's listening to this? There's surely no one is listening to this. Please tell me no. He friggin' tried to blend Latin, rap, and trap in the next album as well. Oh, Jesus Christ. Just, nah, man. You cannot pull this off. And Fifi, honestly, man, one of the worst songs of the year. Again, this would be like top 10. Fifi, Nicki Minaj, of course, is here. Why should I be surprised? Both albums to me are just atrocious. Like, I can't even get hype off of this. I don't know where, you know, if I need to be in a certain setting or if I need to be listening to it in a certain mood, but this just gives me a bit of a headache listening to it. I think he's terrible. Like, he's got to be one of the worst rappers of all time. He must be. He cannot string a fucking bar together. He even said in an interview that he literally just says whatever over a beat and it sells. How have you fallen for this? He knows that this music sounds shit and you buy it anyway. How? It's so funny. I can't believe how we're doing this. There's so much good music out there. And this is the shit that rises to the top. Oh my god. What we got next though? There's 4 more albums that are worse than this apparently. What the hell could be worse? Yeah, Mania by Fall Out Boy. This was the band I was talking about earlier, who decided to ditch their roots and go into electropop. What is this? The first track on the album, oh my god. I thought this album actually wasn't going to happen. I thought this song was going to get scrapped because the single came out and it got panned as fuck to the point where the album got delayed months and months and months. I just thought, yeah, there's no way that they've realized that no one likes this, so they're gonna ditch it. The mixing on this album, I mean, it makes me want to throw up. Everything coming together, clashing in such a terrible way. Patrick Stump actually isn't a very good vocalist. Like, when I was a teenager, I used to love Fall Out Boy, but going back to their music, I think one thing that highlights pretty, like, Patrick Stump actually isn't a very good vocalist. Like, I feel as though, as time's gone on, he really just sounds worse and worse and worse. And maybe it's the production that he's over, but he kind of just yells. Like, he doesn't really control his voice in a particularly satisfying way. He just sort of just throws his vocals out like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's worked for Panic at the Disco, I guess, because they've managed to crack a hit this year with High Hopes. But even still, I feel as though Brendan Urie is another vocalist that kind of just yelps out his voice. There's not really anything controlling it. But over this instrumentation, it actually just sounds far worse. At least Panic at the Disco can actually make a well-crafted song. But Fall Out Boy... You know what? All I should really just say for this entry is I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker colour. That is all. That is all. That is... wow. Number 3. I think this might be the most controversial pick on the list. This won't be great for some music folk out there, I don't think. Wasteisolation by Black Dresses. Now, honestly, I know you may be thinking, well, this album really wasn't that bad, but I had an awful time listening to this. This was horrendous. I appreciated what they were going for. I think lyrically at times it was quite interesting to listen to, but holy shit, the vocals on this? Oh. I made a little mini review of this album earlier in the year, and I said back then that these singers sound like those really annoying, shrill teenagers in terrible teen comedy movies. Oh my god, like there was this guy and it was like, oh no, he had like this, what? That's what they sing like on this whole album. That's what they do the whole time. And it is horrific. And the instrumentation, the industrial clash of everything, again, perhaps it's one of those kind of musical experiences. If you want this kind of thing in that moment, then I could see why you'd enjoy it. Something really weird, really off the wall, eccentric. I get it, but to me it sounds like a mess. It's just all these different sounds clashing together in an uncreative way. I could find this kind of music elsewhere and have a much more enjoyable experience rather than listening to these fucking vocals. Now we got number 2. Number 2. Yeah, I'm gonna go as far as saying that this review that I did for this album might be my best review today. I had a lot of fun making the review, reading the lyrics to this album. Bloody hell. Bear in mind, when I was a teenager, I actually loved this album, and even going back to some of the songs, they've kind of held up, you know, off their Priorities album. I think there's some good jams on there, honestly. For a pop rock album, I wouldn't really say you'd go too far wrong with Priorities. I mean, I don't think it'll be for everyone, but there are some really good jams on there, like Whole Truth, Fancy Dress. They're fun. But Technology? Holy shit. I feel as though everything that they were doing right before just got thrown out the window instead for these fucking terrible rock songs. Come Out to LA, funniest song of the year. Like, the fact this exists, the fucking pre-chorus is just like so ordinary, and then it hits the chorus, it's like, every chance they can get, they just throw in these fucking heavy guitar riffs that are so out of place, and the vocalist is not really, you know, fit to be doing like screamed vocals or anything, but for some reason he keeps doing it, and I don't know why. And some of the lyrics on this album, man, I'm not going to read them out again because I would just prefer you to just go watch that review, because I don't think I can replicate that same kind of comedic value that I did there. But seriously, there's this one line where he says, "Turn my Google on." Turn my Google on? Who says turn my Google on? That one line just made me think this album was terrible. I don't know how that line got into this album. And that one song, that creepy song where he's like manipulating this girl as well, there was some really atrocious lyrics on that track. Makes it even worse that there are actually some allegations surrounding this guy too. And, you know, listening to songs like that, it kind of makes you wince a little bit and think, what the hell? Not that the allegations are automatically true. I'm not saying that at all, but it does kind of make you think. And the worst part about this entire list is so many of these artists I featured on this list are like terrible people as well. Like, they just have the worst allegations surrounding them that they possibly can, and yet they just so happen to make some of the worst music. What the hell? Yeah, this was one of the worst rock albums of the year, and rock publications have hailed this as one of the best rock albums of the year. Are they listening to any music or what? Like, what are you hearing with this album? No wonder people out there think rock is dead if this is the shit you're promoting, Jesus Christ. And now we're at it, we're at number 1. The worst album of the year. You probably can guess it, based on the fact that this is being considered the worst album of the year by nearly everyone, and I'm not really adding to the conversation, unfortunately. But at the same time, I didn't even talk about this in a review at all, so you might not even know that this will be my number 1. Total Shittery by Lil Xan is my pick for worst album of 2018. Yeah, I didn't review this, because why the hell would I talk about this? How the hell could I make a review on this? It was atrocious. Again, with this new era of hip-hop, where these awful rappers can't even string a sentence together because they're just coked up on all these different drugs, and they're making it sound like it's this new personality trait to be taking fucking Xanax and codeine and all that shit. No, before you know, get riled up in the comments, I'm not saying all hip-hop is like this, but there is definitely a subgenre of hip-hop currently right now that is glorifying this. This guy is doing that. He's making it cool to be taking these drugs and having this really whoa, that's his whole shtick. His whole shtick is to be drawled out on fucking medication that he shouldn't be taking, and then he just does that over a beat. And the beat sounds terrible because, you know, why would it sound good? This guy has no talent in any area of music, so it's not like anything on this album is gonna sound good. Lyrically, atrocious. There's just no redeemable qualities about this. It's just everything wrong with current day hip-hop, and you know, he's not really the most popular rapper around right now. I don't think he really had a hit, but yeah, it's a shame that this is what's getting popular. It sounds god-awful. Literally after every line he says yeah. Like, that's not how you fit in ad-libs. Like, listen to Playboi Carti, he knows how to master the ad-lib, but literally every line he's like, yeah. Yeah. And I'm not mocking him, because he actually just does sound like he's saying because I don't fucking know what he's saying. Like, who understands his lyrics, man? This isn't a vibe. It can't possibly be a vibe. How can you vibe to this? I can't believe this got passed for an album. I'm gonna leave it there. Worst albums of the year. Thank you for watching. Lil Xan wins the award this time around. We'll see what wins the worst album next year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on what you think were the worst albums of the year, and what you think of the albums that I picked. If you like any of them, then do let me know as well. Or if you agree, disagree, whatever, let me know. Have a good day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.